Okay. Good evening. I'm Nathan Stix, Chair of the Community Activities Commission, calling to order the Community Activities Commission meeting of September 10th, 2025. The time is 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded, broadcast live, and may be viewed later on the city's YouTube channel. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Amy, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Forsberg.
Here.
Commissioner Van Atta.
Present.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Gozarian.
Here.
Commissioner Kretzinger.
Here.
Vice Chair Flash.
I am here.
Chair Stix.
Present. Thank you. Okay, is there any objection to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? Seeing that there is no objections, please show the final agenda approved as presented. And is there any objection to approval of the August 20th minutes? Since there is no objection, please show the minutes approved as presented. Public comment. Amy, do we have anybody online for public comment? Okay, no, we don't. Commissioner comments and celebrations. Does anyone have anything they would like to share?
I do. In light of today's events, a school shooting and a shooting at an event, following our event this weekend as a member of the school community, I want to say that hate has no place in our communities. We must stand united against all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and violence. Every person deserves to feel safe and respected in their community. Let us lead with compassion, speak out against injustice, and work together to build a society where everyone can live with dignity and peace.
Today's shooting was 10 minutes from my daughter's house, and that brings it really close to home. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Thank you, Kim.
I have comments in a similar vein. In light of the tragic shooting in Utah today, acts of hate that some members of our Newcastle community are currently experiencing, the unforgivable shootings in Minnesota a few months ago, and the school shooting in Colorado today, I feel compelled to say that whether we agree or disagree, acts of hate and violence are never the answer. As a matter of public safety, these reprehensible acts only serve to make us less safe and endanger the very freedoms that we hold dear. So while we don't have to agree on everything, we must agree that violence is never the answer and hold those who are responsible, no matter what side they are on, accountable in the name of democracy and in the name of humanity.
Thank you, Christian. Anybody else? Okay, this is going to take me a little bit. So, first of all, a huge thank you for Newcastle Days. It was probably one of our best events ever. And then, to me, the number one reason was Amy sitting right here and all her hard work, dedication, organization, and great communication. Newcastle Days could not have been more successful. To Kim, again, for stepping up and leading the parade, and just everything you did during the day was wonderful. To our public works crew, they worked above and beyond the call of duty with limited staff. To all you commissioners for all our hard work at the park and helping out. To all the volunteers that helped out. To our MC, Lance Lambert. To the Chamber for hosting the Beer and Wine Garden. To Boogie Boulevard for a great concert. To all our stage performers. To Neil Hubbard and his bagpipes, even though they were a little late, and all those who participated in the parade, to kicking off our event, to all of our sponsors and vendors, and to the Cars on the Green organizers and participants. And then a big shout out to Safeway and QSC for donating refreshments for our volunteers and for our vendors. So it was a great day. The little bit of wetness we got did not deter us too much, but it was a fantastic event. And the few comments and feedbacks, or I should say the many comments and feedbacks we got were, it was a great event. So good job to everybody. Okay, with that, let's go into reports and turn it over to Amy, Events and Recreation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, my report this month is oral, given that I've been a little busy. Because as soon as Newcastle Days wraps up, we're launching into the Volunteer Appreciation and other events in September. I'd like to thank everybody for Newcastle Days before, during, after, and all of the support. I want to thank the community for that as well. I will be doing thank yous via email, via social media and whatnot. The timing didn't feel quite right today. I do want to ask commissioners afterwards if you could spend a moment giving your signature to the cords. This is what we do with our sponsors. Each of our sponsors gets a handwritten thank you cord, and we have all the commissioners sign the bottom of that, and it's just a nice personal touch, and then I hand deliver to those who are local here. We will be, of course, debriefing Newcastle Days on the agenda today. I do want to mention some upcoming events. We have the Volunteer Appreciation event coming up next Wednesday, September 17th, 5 to 7 p.m. at Newcastle, Regency Newcastle. I was originally concerned about the tight turnaround, but that seems to have worked in our favor. Maybe emailing people 3 weeks ahead of time is too long and giving them only a week and a half notice is better, because we've had a lot of positive RSVPs very quickly. So I think that's going to be a great event. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm grateful for Regency Newcastle for offering to host and provide all of the food and beverage. On September 27th is the Fall Recycling Collection event at Hazelwood Elementary. All the information as to what you can and cannot recycle is on our website. There's a news article on the front page, as well as on the calendar, and also on our Facebook page. And then finally, in September, we have on September 30th, the Town Hall meeting. And that is at Risdon Middle School, Tuesday, September 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. Doors open at 5:30. Light refreshments and childcare will be provided. And one thing I did need to ask the commission is going to be invited to table at the event. And so if you would, during the planning calendar, to ask the commissioners if they would like to add that to their calendar and table at the event. Upcoming programs. Fall Skyhawks started this week. On Tuesday, we had Hoopster Tots, so our first ever basketball tots program for preschoolers and basketball. Thursday, which is tomorrow, we have Soccer Tots and soccer. On Friday, we have our first ever pickleball classes for youth happening on the brand newly resurfaced pickleball courts, which are open. That's on Friday afternoon. And then on Saturday morning, we have tennis on the newly resurfaced tennis court. And just a reminder, the volunteer newsletter goes out the third Friday of every month, and that is Friday the 19th. So if you have anything from your organizations, feel free to let me know and I will get that in there. Any questions on anything that I've shared this evening? Alrighty then. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Oh, let's start with Historical Society and Chamber. Christian.
First of all, I'd very much like to thank the Chamber for the beer and wine tent at Newcastle Days. They did a wonderful job as always, and I love the change up with the format this year with the tables and umbrellas as opposed to the big tent. I thought that was very nice. Upcoming next week on Thursday, September 18th from 8 to 9 a.m. at the Coal Creek Family YMCA. The Chamber is hosting their Coffee and Connections, which is For networking, exploring opportunities, or just saying hello, you're welcome to join them. Please sign up no later than the 17th if you plan on doing that. And the Historical Society, I hope everyone had the chance to tour the cemetery and stop by and see the historical items that they had on display. They are a really hardworking and knowledgeable group of volunteers, and I appreciate everything they do for our community. So I think that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Christian. Allison, Newcastle Trails.
For Newcastle Trails, first of all, I attended the Newcastle Trails board meeting in August. Primarily what they've been doing recently, I mean, they've got a lot of irons in the fire, but primarily what they're doing is working on updates to trails, or to trails maps, including updating icons and how to use them, and updating some trail names. And were at Newcastle Days, of course, including and presented an updated map for the public to share, as well as hosting or helping to host the scavenger hunt for the scouts. That always helped them. But again, they're primarily working on updating trails maps. It's kind of their big project.
Thanks, Allison. Connie, what's going on at the library?
Yes, tonight is actually the annual meeting for the Friends of the Newcastle Library, taking place right now as we speak. Before the meeting started, from 5:30 to 6 p.m., they hosted new librarians. And then at the annual meeting tonight, they will have a treasurer's report, a report from the library, a report from the president, and then election of 4 new board members. Both Carol Simpson and Son Buford are retiring from the board as they have served 2 consecutive terms. So their positions and 2 others are up for election. All Friends of the Newcastle Library members may nominate and vote on the 4 new board members. And then the newly elected board will elect officers from among themselves. Again, that's all happening tonight. And then also their next big book sale is scheduled for May of 2026.
Thank you. Ed, as always, I'm sure the Art Council has very little going on, right?
Always. Thank you, Nathan. So I did not get a chance to present last month, so I want to just recap a couple of things for July, or at least one thing. We had our art fair in July, annual art fair at Newcastle Commons. Again, another huge success for the artists, local artists in the community. Great time was had by all. In August, we had at the library a art of chocolate dipping event. This is the 2nd year in a row that we've done this, and very fun event for adults and kids. So that was a great showing there. And again, thanks to the Newcastle Library for their continued partnership with events there. We continue with our film series at Aegis Gardens, and once a month we do a Saturday night filming. This last weekend we did American Graffiti in honor of the car show at Newcastle Days. And again, every month we do a film series there. This Saturday, the 13th, at the Newcastle Library, we're doing a program called Gonzango Music and Dance African Showcase. So this is a wonderful opportunity for both adults and youth to participate in an African dance performance. So it's interactive, not just the performers performing, but they will get you up and get you working and active. And then in December, looking forward to that, will be our, again, Songs of the Seasons event. So this is a program with the local schools and the choirs and some of the musical performers from our local high schools, elementary schools, and middle schools. So it encompasses quite a few of the youth in the community. On a just general note, the Newcastle 2025 Fall Art Exhibition is up at the library, so you can view that during normal business hours, and please vote for the best of the show, which has been supported by some of our local businesses. And then Free Little Art Gallery at Newcastle, or sorry, the Newcastle City Hall, continue to support that. And we're looking for, again, colored bottle caps for our mural at Lakebourne Park. So if you want to continue to collect those, you can reach out to us at newcastlewaarts@gmail.com, and we can make arrangements to pick those up. So that's it with the Arts Council. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Just as a reminder, if you want your detailed notes in the report to council, to make sure you email them to me before 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Also at our October meeting, this will be on the future planning calendar, October meeting, we will re-review our liaison responsibilities and assignments with Connie retiring. So we'll take a look at who's doing what with whom and take a look at that. So. Okay, that concludes our reports. On the first thing under general business, let's start with the Newcastle Days debrief. Connie and Christian, take it off.
Yeah, I think like we've done for past events, we could just kick it off with a discussion of what we feel like went well and what we feel like we could improve on for future years. If anyone has any suggestions.
I have a couple things. As Connie and I realized very quickly with our treats and coffee, we do need to have a sign that says for volunteers only, refreshments for volunteers only, because we had a lot of people from the public walking up and saying, can I have a donut? Can I have some coffee? So if we could have a sign next year, that'd be great. As Ed and I were walking around, meeting with all the vendors and offering treats and water, we realized that the water cooler we had was not sufficient or adequately large enough to make a full round. We were like hitting 6 booths and all the water was gone. So next year we'd love to get 2 wagons and 2 large coolers. The hit this year was when Ed opened the cooler of refreshments. Almost every single booth said, I'm good with everything. We're like, really? The refreshments are courtesy of Safeway. We opened it up and they were like, oh my, I need to get something from that. So that was a big hit. And then the only feedback that I received, and I know one of the commissioners shared with me that somebody from the public said, was the lack of art vendors that we had this year. And they really would have liked to have seen more artists and painters and ceramics and whatnot, that there was a lack of art this year. So those are my comments.
And just for the record, I got the same comments from several people as well, so. Around the
can I
topic
speak
of
to
art
that?
vendors.
So there were spots for about 70 booths. Take away the 3 city booths. Take away 20 booths for sponsors. And what remained was divided up based on the percentage of applicants. So there were about 25% of applicants were handcrafters and artisans. And so there were about 25% handcrafter and artisan booths invited to participate. A couple of them unfortunately dropped out, and we did our best. I did my best to replace with artists and vendors from the wait list. And they were also mixed in this year. So we actually had only slightly less than we had last year. But the goal was to have about the same amount as what we had last year. So I don't know if it's a result of them being mixed in and not self-labeled, but it was pretty much the same as what it was last year.
Yeah, for those who don't have historical context, 2 years ago, we had art vendors on the tennis courts and got feedback at that time that that wasn't an ideal location. It was too far off the beaten path and they weren't sure that attendees knew they were over there. So last year we tried kind of up on a hill behind where the city tents were and got that same feedback again. So this year trying something new, which was just incorporate, kind of mixing them all together. So it'd be interesting to hear from folks if we feel like maybe that is what didn't work, or if it truly was maybe the type of the artisans that we had, or maybe we didn't have painters, as was mentioned, or some of the more historical artisan types. Whereas this year, I think there were a lot more. I saw jewelry, and there was soaps, some like crochet, and kids' toys. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. It felt like less artisans applied this year than maybe in the past. So would be interested to, if anyone has any maybe thoughts about why that is, or if there's things we could do to maybe encourage more artisans to apply in the future. That might be a way to think about that for next year.
To add on to Commissioner Forsberg observations, in talking with the vendors who did participate, they were very happy, and some of them were returned from either 2 years ago or last year, and overwhelmingly happy. So there's that to be said about mixing them in, that they felt better about their locations this year.
I was at the booth when a person came up and commented about, as the way that I heard it was, this is just all businesses, which of course small businesses are businesses, but I understood the gist of what she meant. However, I would also like to say that since Newcastle Days, I have seen on the Newcastle Neighborhood Facebook page several people saying things like, I got this thing at Newcastle Days from some maker and I don't have their contact information. Can I have it please, because I want more?
And
So I
you've
think
been
that was a
very
really
good to let
sweet
them know
thing.
who to contact. Yeah.
I will add that there were some past artists, handcrafters who were not invited back for one reason or another. And I received, at least from one of them, almost identical feedback. I wonder if it may be the same person.
New topic, moving on. I heard from a lot of people that they loved the barbecue. I think one of the survey results said that, and then I actually got an email that said that they just wanted to give the positive feedback, that they felt like that was a nice kind of surprise walking up to the park. It welcomes everybody with a smoky smell, but that it felt like just like a good mix-up from the types of food vendors that we usually have. So it seemed like people really liked that.
We had food for 3 nights. And I saw more people buying the full everything, taking home stuff for dinner. So yeah, that was a big hit. Big hit. The one thing that I really thought the layout was the best we've ever had, because I think we used our space efficiently, and having all the booths in the middle, with the exception of a few off to the side, but the kids area was all in one area, the car show in one area, and then all the booths in the middle, which just made it very accessible. And it flowed really nicely. Any other feedback?
Just one thing that was mentioned as we were talking about food, in relation to food, and I know we can't make anybody do anything, but it would be fun if vendors who were willing to do like a taste of Newcastle something, so like a smaller portion of their offerings or one of their offerings, like what's your best thing, and like have a small portion, because like Paul and I shared the barbecue, right? We didn't get a chance to eat any other food. And so if the portions were smaller, we could support more of the vendors and it would provide an opportunity for that. And again, knowing that we can't make anybody do anything, but like you might consider that as an option.
Along those lines, I didn't have a chance to really take a look. But one thing I'm thinking about adding to the food vendor interest form, and I'd like your feedback on this, is a price range. Some of the feedback I heard just being out in the crowd was expressed a little bit of surprise at how expensive some of the vendors were. I'm curious to know if you heard similar feedback or if you have a similar or different opinion on that, because I didn't have an opportunity to visit each of the food vendors.
I will say the barbecue was massive portions, I think, to Kim's point. So when I had first looked at their food menu, I was also kind of surprised by how pricey it was. I think when you realize that the portions like could feed 2 people, maybe that changed things, but that wasn't clear in their signage, so that one makes sense. I can't speak to the other vendors though.
I do know that someone mentioned to me that they were all similarly priced. Like, there really wasn't much striation between all of the food vendors. Because they were considering that as part of their like deciding point where to eat, and it was like, oh, that's not actually a deciding point because they're all about the same. Eating out is very expensive, as we all know right now.
The only other thing I heard was ice cream. A lot of parents were like, is there ice cream here tonight? And we didn't really have a just ice cream vendor, which might have been a nice add. So you get your dinner and you get your dessert.
Well, we're still talking Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very bottom. One of the things that was mentioned potentially was getting a water station. You know, they can have the ones that people can refill reusable water bottles, or so that we're just keeping some plastic out of the environment.
Yeah, I think we talked about those are likely rentable.
Yeah.
So something to definitely consider for next year.
I think it was good that we had the explorers in the parking lot to direct traffic and answer any questions as people came in.
Ooh, and to that was also on mine, could we potentially have them start earlier? Because one piece of feedback that I had, I was still there, so I wasn't at the parade yet, and one of the people who was loading in said the water line is already full. So that was probably 9:30 in the morning. And when I went to the parade route, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's because there were like half car lengths between every single car. And so having someone who's like, no, this is your space. We're going to make you got plenty of room, but we're going to make sure that you're
Yeah.
lined up, where you need to.
Either having someone, explorers there that can direct people how to park
Yeah.
next to each other, as opposed to a couple of houses away. Or, and I like the explorers idea better, because the other one involves Public Works doing more work the day before and striping parking spots. And that seems like a no thank you to me.
I mean, it's definitely options that can be looked into. You may not be aware, but all of our performing groups, all of our vendor booths and activity providers were given the opportunity and encouragement to please park at Risden Middle School and carpool over, because parking does fill, particularly right around that 10 o'clock time, because you have all those teams coming in individual vehicles. And I did specifically get permission from Renton School District to allow all 3 of those lots be available. I don't know how many people actually took advantage of that. One thing that greatly helped this year, the marching band came in a school bus. So 80 people in one bus, which was pretty fantastic. So I will continue to push that option. Particularly some of the vendors come with multiple staff and individual cars, and if you think 70 booths times 5 staff, yeah.
Anything else?
Couple things. Amy, you and I had talked about no 9:30 to 10 a.m. load in. It's cutting it too close. And with all the families arriving and all the, yeah. Or maybe we can cut it off at, no, because we say 9:30 and they come at 9:45. So, and I do want to comment that I did see probably 40 helium balloons during the day going up into the air. And that hurts my green heart. So I would prefer that there are no helium balloons at the venue. And I also wanted to raise the concern, I know we had a face painter there that was like for fee, and I know one of the booths was doing face painting for free. And I also wonder, that feels unfair to the person that paid for a vendor space and is charging.
That's a good point on all counts. So Alicia's Wonderland is the one who comes and, I did check in with, Lily after the fact, and she does fine because it's a very different quality, that she's providing. And over the years, Coal Creek YMCA has done face painting, or BECU, or Liberty Drill does it for fundraising. So it up until now, and including this year, it hasn't impacted Lily's business. And so as long as that is the case, because she is paying to be there, I'm not going to micromanage that. However, the Public Works crew and I have been working really closely to try to minimize the amount of microplastics that are left behind. And so we've been really strict with our food vendors. And so I think we need to also be more strict with our booth vendors. And I say microplastics, but that would include other things that potentially get into the environment, into our lake. Namely, the helium balloons is definitely an issue. Not so much the animal twisting balloons, because those don't go up and out and pop and end up in the lake. We also had an issue. One vendor had bubbles. And so I'm going to have to say no bubbles, because that ended up being an issue with our food vendors. So it's just that, being clear up front. When it says don't exceed your footprint, it really means don't exceed your footprint, your 10 by 10 footprint. And so I'll just have to add that to the list of things that you can or cannot do. It is.
Yeah, I think, thank you for saying that, Kim. I think that's a good reminder. We were all talking about the balloons at one point because it almost they were released so frequently, it almost seemed intentional. There was something odd going on with those balloons. At any given time, you could look up and see multiple in the sky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Any other feedback?
I just remembered, great selection on the color of the t-shirt. So congratulations for that. Several people did ask about getting t-shirts, and I know we've had a variety of discussions about volunteers. T-shirts are for volunteers, as are donuts and coffee. But maybe there'd be an opportunity to look into some sort of variation to sell.
And I did want to say that I also appreciated I thought having the beer and wine garden just be open. Now, if it rains, different opinion, but it opened up the whole park a lot more, just visually. And my understanding, it was easier too, but I did think not having that big ominous tent allowed you to kind of see the whole park.
And I think we should make a recommendation to the chamber next year that they have stronger guidelines that, like, ID is required to get in. It was brought to my attention that somebody actually got into the beer garden without showing any ID and did not get the wristband. And that had a few people upset that they saw this person in the beer garden and they did not have an ID with them to get in. So if there was proper signing, I think that would make it a little more strict. I also want to call out that Commissioner Kretzinger drove multiple carts during the morning and did a fabulous job and didn't run anybody over. So I was very, very proud of her.
Or anything, or get stuck.
Almost get stuck. Good feedback. Anything else?
But she probably had fun.
She looked like she was having a ball.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to drive golf carts around at an event for a few decades, so yeah, it was fun.
Okay. To the planning committee, excellent job. Thank you for all your hard work and for everybody's feedback. Next on our general business, Amy, America 250.
For today, I'm just gonna put out a reminder, rather than open it up for discussion today. Just a reminder that, next year is the, 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The city of Newcastle has signed on as a partner, to Washington State's celebration, as have a number of, municipalities, state and local organizations. The ask is that we think about ways we rebrand what we already do, but also consider what other communities are doing and perhaps adding, not big, huge events, but smaller opportunities. And so coming off of Newcastle Days, if there are ways that you can think of, I shared with you at the last meeting or the meeting before, I believe, the guidelines for what their themes are. If you see opportunities to incorporate America 250 ideas, themes into Newcastle Days, please don't hesitate to let me know. And we'll leave it at that for today.
Okay. Next thing, community bulletin board. So as you guys know, there is a stanchion that was built at the east end of the boardwalk along Coal Creek Parkway. It's in a highly visible area. The stanchion is there, but there's nothing to mount communications into. I would like to present to Brendan an idea of buying a secured corkboard aluminum frame that you can lock, like at Lake Bourne Park right now, that we could post flyers and information of upcoming city events. That is a highly trafficked area, and I think it'd be a really easy way for us to get information out and advertise. You know, if you have information that you'd like to get or share, we could have a link to the city's website, a link to Amy, so people can know how to get information and get signed up for things. They're not expensive, they're easy to install. I would believe the one thing we would need the city to do first is put a sealed roof on top, like the council or the art council did with the poetry stand, because it was just wood slats on top, but they put a flat roof to prevent the water from leaking through. So right now it's not waterproof. It's not a waterproof roof. But I think it could all be done for very low cost. Wanted to open it up for discussion, see if you guys had any ideas, if you like that idea, and then I'll pursue it with Brendan.
You're referring to something freestanding like.
So it's there right now. When you go to the end of the boardwalk, the new boardwalk at the
Got it,
south
okay,
end of the
okay.
lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What I, as you were talking about it, something that I thought of is building some sort of a secured frame along the, inside the park, close to the poetry wall, close to the tennis courts, on the wall, say, of the restroom building, facing the sidewalk, the path, that could be accessed similarly, that could be used for that.
So it's already there. There's already one there on the rest.
Okay, so, I'm suggesting, making use of, or maybe even a second one, or instead, something, on the restroom building walls. So, what is there now? Like the one that you're talking about, what is on the board? Anything at all?
It's just a stanchion. It's a wooden stanchion. So you could put a push pin, like put a flyer up, but I'm talking about having a secured, they're called cork boards with aluminum frames. So
Okay.
at the park right now, there is a cork board aluminum frame with locks. And the city posts events, and Arts Council has, if you want to sign up for the Arts Council, and the chief has some security flyers up there. And the city also posts when people are reserving the picnic areas, those go in there as well. So I'd like the stanchion out on Coal Creek to be used to advertise what's going on in the city. And people can also contact the city and say, you know, I've got some flyers I'd like to put up, and see if it's appropriate for us to do that.
Got it.
So what is there now is something very similar to the poetry wall. So the poetry board. It just doesn't have anything on it, which Nathan's recommending we put a secure bulletin board on it.
It's 99% empty, so it's not being utilized.
Was the initial thought that more members of the community would just be posting things themselves, but it's turning out that that's not happening? Or
So I don't think there was so when the vendor or the contractor that built the boardwalk said, hey, we'll install this for no extra cost, and the city went, yeah. So I don't think there was really a plan.
So I agree that that is a good spot, you know, the Esplanade there is a high traffic area, and it would make sense to have like a Newcastle Trails map, our events, and, you know, we could even be creative about it, like doing a Stepcast where there's QR codes of, you know, podcasts or something that you can scan and listen to while you're walking, or, yeah, I think it'd be a cool opportunity. I support it.
Wonderful.
Do you know what Kim said? I think it's a good idea and a way to catch more people's eyes and get them better informed. Cross our fingers.
I agree. The more opportunities for people to get information, the better. A question I would have immediately is who would have access, how frequently would information get updated, all those practical things.
I'll express my interest in doing it as well.
I will pursue it. Okay. And the last thing on our agenda for tonight is the Jim Price Memorial. Ed.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about Jim very briefly, and I don't know if all of you know of Jim. So Jim Price, Peggy Price's husband, for those of you who, or ex-husband, for those of you who know Peggy. Jim and Peggy have been in the community for many years, prior to the formation of the city of Newcastle. Where Jim was very instrumental, along with Peggy, and some of the early involvement with the Newcastle Trails. Jim was also instrumental in the early years of the Newcastle Arts Council, and actually was the person who brought me into the group and got me involved in the organization. He was very supportive in forming the city of Newcastle as an entity in the early years. And as well, Jim sat in one of these seats for many years on the Community Activities Commission. Unfortunately, we lost Jim several years ago, and in the process, when that happened, there was some funds that were raised eventually to put together a Jim Price Memorial, which would honor Jim and the contributions that he made to the city of Newcastle, which I can't even begin to express, because there were many in really creating a community in Newcastle. The funds were raised, and for various reasons, there had been no movement on a memorial for many years. And then, of course, COVID hit, and that put a delay to it. So when the addition to the south end of the park happened, Lake Bourne Park, the thought was, well, let's find a spot that we could create a memorial for Jim. And one of the things that caught everyone's eyes was before they built that, there were a bunch of rocks and kind of a rock garden around the south end of the lake, which was close to the existing trail right now. And so the idea was, or the concept was that potentially we could build something around that. Jim was an avid hiker. In fact, he actually lost his life hiking. So he was doing what he loved. And so to make a long story short, the group got together, some of us that have been concerned that we make sure that we honor Jim's life, and recently met to put plans together for a memorial. And we'd already picked out a spot that had been discussed with Brendan and his predecessor, Davi, which is right on the corner of the trail that goes, I don't know the names of the trails, but right as you're heading into the Esplanade, Esplanade, thank you, on the west side, and there's a little corner there that's at the corner of the existing trail, or the old trail, and the new trail that goes. So we have picked out a stone. It's a very artistic stone, so it has a lot of character, which Jim would really appreciate. He was a lover of the arts, and wanted to give everybody a heads up that the plan is to put that stone in that spot with an engraving on it in honor of Jim. So we're looking at this both as a memorial to him, to honor him, but also wanted to pick out something that had some artistic qualities to it, which I think we did. And so wanted to present that to the committee, give you guys a heads up that that's happening, and answer any questions that you may have around that.
I'm excited to see it in place. We've talked about it for a really long time. Jim was one of the first people that made me feel really welcome on the CAC when I joined back in whenever that was.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. I had to laugh when I was reading some of the emails about when Brendan was asking, well, how big is this rock? And it came back with the words tonnage was there, and Brendan's like, that's a little bigger than I had anticipated. Like, can we do this and get this? And do we need a crane, or what do we need? Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah, it will be a presence. Let's put it that way, and that's why we consider it not just a honoring Jim, but really it's going to be a piece of art that's going to be in the park. So.
And I know Ed said this at the very beginning, but Jim Price is probably the reason we are sitting here today. I mean, that was kind of his vision when he was helping to develop the whole trails and parks, and this was the first commission he sat on, was the Parks Commission. So, okay, thank you. Additional public comment, Amy. Surprise. Okay. On our planning calendar, as Amy said too earlier, the town hall will be on September 30th. The commission will have a table. Are there any commissioners who can volunteer some time to man the table? Gabriella,
I'll be
Christian,
there.
Kim, hands up. All right. 3 of you guys are on. Do they need to actually sign up somewhere?
I can
No,
man the
I just
table
need
for
to know-
part of the evening, not the entire time. Just
I just need to know, 1, the CAC wants the table, 2, that it'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
staffed, and then 3, what information the CAC plans to have at the table.
I think the last time we had volunteer signups, It was also before all our events, so I know we were handing out event information, but there's really not much to hand out as far as that, but it would be, I guess, if you're interested.
Volunteer signups. Won't the opening be posted and active at that point still? For recruiting?
It'll probably be closed by then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that would be a good opportunity
I
to
think
let people know that it was open.
Because we already have a date for the interview,
Okay.
which is
Then-
before the town hall.
Amy,
I
the,
believe.
whatever.
No, no, the interview would be after the town hall, that's correct.
Okay. Whatever the feedback QR codes are that we have for Newcastle Days in general, stuff you'd like to see.
The suggestion.
Band recommendations.
Yeah,
Yeah, a suggestion
Just
box
a suggestions
and or
box.
QR code.
Yeah.
that'd be great, yeah.
So the CAC opening closes at 5 p.m. on September 30th. So that obviously would be after closing. However, if the feedback QR codes is something that you'd like at the table, someone needs to get me the stuff so that I can print it out, laminate it, whatever needs to be done, unless you're planning on doing it yourself. Because I don't have access to all of that stuff.
Can you teach us how to do what you're doing? Okay. Do I have a volunteer to work with Connie on how to create these QR codes with Microsoft?
I,
Yeah, Microsoft.
I will.
Makes it for you.
I will work with Connie to
All right, thank you,
take over
Kristen.
the QR code creation.
Okay, and some of the other things coming up on our planning calendar, and you guys know that the planning calendar is a shared document on our SharePoint site, so if you've ever got ideas, thoughts, you can just pop into the SharePoint site. It has its own little folder called Planning Calendar. Let's see, in October, we've got our parks overview, parts 3 and 4, quarter 3 and 4 parks and trails update. I've added a few things, but the only thing I can remember off the top of my head, again, was the liaison assignments. Yeah, we'll go from there. Okay. Our next CAC meeting is October the 8th, which will be Connie's last meeting, so we'll of course have to do something to celebrate her service. And with that, is there anything else anybody would like to share? If not, the time is 6:53 and we are adjourned.